Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January 20th, 2025 council meeting. Welcome to everybody. The District of Metchosin works to be increasingly mindful of its commitment to be a more inclusive governance with our neighbors. I'd like to acknowledge our neighboring First Nations governments with whom we have committed to building stronger working relationships, the Siano First Nations and the Suk First Nation. Thank you. With that, Council, you've got an agenda before you. I'd like to propose an amendment to add 2B. This would be Bert Harrison, President of the Metchosin Museum Society, would like to have a brief time to discuss some museum matters. So that would be with 2B. Go ahead.
Mayor Little, I'd move adoption of the agenda with the addition of Mr. Harrison and the museum.
Great. Moved by Councillor Schuken, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Donaldson fell off her horse last week, so she's not able to join us, but we wish her well and a speedy recovery. Let's move to presentations. Welcome to Linda Mackey and Mike Riley, a community good proposal, West Shore Outdoor Public Pool. Welcome.
Can you hear me? Perfect. Thank you very much, Mayor Little, council members, and Metchosin residents. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mike Riley, and I am the past president of the West Shore Chamber of Commerce, as well as the past president of the West Shore Rotary. And the purpose of our time here today is to inform you about the proposal that we're working on to build an outdoor pool in the West Shore, and to seek your approval in principle that this is something that Metchosin thinks would be a good idea. The challenge with projects like this is very often that, what is this going to mean to the taxpayers? What's the bottom line? How much is it going to cost, both in initial construction and ongoing maintenance? The proposal that my friend Linda Mackey is going to tell you about is what we're working on is to raise the funds for a large outdoor pool through the Rotary, both with other Rotary groups and privately for the construction, as well as an ongoing endowment for maintenance. We're not looking for any money from any of the municipalities, and the City of Colwood was our first approach to agree in principle and to seek a location. So the next steps are to introduce the plan to the neighboring municipalities, because everyone's going to benefit, but we would very much like for Metchosin to say, this is a great idea, we're behind it, and when we ask for your participation, you're behind it. And I'll turn the floor over to my friend Linda.
Thank you so much, Mike. My name is Linda Mackey. I am a business owner here on the West Shore. I am a photographer based out of Colwood. My family and I moved here in 2016, and the first thing I noticed was that, where the heck are all the pools? Coming from Vancouver, there's a lot of pools. There's a lot of outdoor pools. And I have learned within the last couple of years, since Mike and I kind of teamed up on this, is that this has been a topic that's been brought up before in Victoria. But it seems like from what we've experienced since we've been talking about this and building up this proposal, that everyone is unanimous in terms of wanting this. Citizens, the City of Colwood, that was a unanimous yes. I've had so many people come out of the woodwork saying they want to help. Hence, we have, you can see on the screen there, we have basically a roster of people from various disciplines that want to come forward and be part of this committee and task force, or whatever you want to call it, to help bring this project to fruition. I'm not going to go through the whole proposal because normally this would take about half an hour or so. But you have the proposal in your possession. You can read it at your leisure. But it's pretty straightforward. I mean, my idea for this pool was kind of loosely based on various pools across Canada. The Kitts Pool is obviously a very good example of a very sustainable, beautiful, large pool that serves the whole of Vancouver. But the idea for our pool would be one that is multidisciplinary. It wouldn't just be a pool, it'd be a community center. It would have other activities for seniors, for people with disabilities, for children, sports. We want to make it, well, I know Colwood wants to make Colwood and the West Shore a, what do you call it, a world-class community where people come and, you know, maybe we could have an Olympic Games here, you know. So we want to build a large pool, potentially a secondary pool. So this would serve so many different purposes. And the idea would be, it wouldn't be just, you know, in the summer, but, you know, we're lucky because we have good weather, basically, you know, right through till October, typically. But we want to make it so that it's kind of a year-round facility, and it could also host, you know, corporate events. I mean, you name it, just like the Vancouver Aquarium does. So that's kind of the idea. And I mean, there's so many positive aspects to having a pool. I grew up with a pool living in West Vancouver, on the North Shore of Vancouver, or yeah, the North Shore. So I know firsthand, and I think you probably, each one of you could probably attest to that as well. So this is basically our proposal, and we just would love your support. We think that Metchosin would be, well, just like all the other municipalities, and even Victoria proper, everyone would benefit from having a facility like this. So I will open it up to any questions you might have at this time, or comments, or anything. Thank you.
Sorry, questions for our, go ahead, Councillor Abb.
Yeah, I was just wondering, and Mr. Rowley mentioned that you wanted our support in principle for when you came to ask us for, you know, our participation. So I guess I just wondered what you meant by our participation. We're always afraid about money, right?
Yes, no, absolutely. What I would seek from Metchosin is the ability to be able to say that Metchosin as a municipality felt that this was something that they were supportive of. But we're not asking for any money, because we're not going to ask money from the other municipalities as well. What I would expect is that the Metchosin Council recognizes that it's a benefit to have an outdoor pool facility for recreation for the residents, as well as potential economic benefits throughout the whole district. So if you were able to have an approval in principle for the proposal, to be candid, Councilperson Epp, I would hope that you wouldn't be opposed to the idea and work against us.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Shukin.
Mike and Linda, thank you very much for being here tonight and your work on this. A few questions. Location. Any ideas of where you might consider the pool?
So at this point, with Colwood's approval, again in principle, that they would support it and they would be willing to make land available, the next step is a feasibility study on various locations. There's a number of things that have been ruled out, obviously, because of ground instability and exposure and other public access. So, I mean, the proposal that we're looking at, and if you take the time to go through it, it's likely a 5-year, $15 million or more project. It's a large scale. We're not looking to build a small backyard pool to serve the entire region. So it would be doing it properly. So to answer your question, there isn't a particular location yet, but there are a number of different sites that Colwood has proposed, and the next step would be a greater in-depth study.
I have another question, but I'll just defer to Councillor Gray.
Councillor Gray.
Thank you. Thanks very much for the presentation. I guess sounds like a fabulous idea. You mentioned the Kitts Pool, and it's a saltwater pool. Are you considering that?
Not necessarily. It would also depend on the feasibility, like what would be the best option for I mean, this would be hopefully or potentially for Olympic purposes. We want to build an Olympic-sized pool, so I'm not sure. Again, that would have to depend on the experts.
Engineering and design would be down the road. We also have people ask us at this point, how big are the locker rooms going to be? So, can't say.
Councillor Shukin.
Thank you. Next, through you, Mayor Little, you mentioned the endowment for maintenance, operations and maintenance, I would presume. What are your thoughts on how that might come about? And sorry, I did see the chart kind of with projections about what the regular expenses are. Could you give us a ballpark on what yearly expenses might be? Just do my addition for me if you could.
Yeah, that would depend on the final engineering. If if the proposal moves forward where we do an in-kind, where there's an indoor pool that's being built municipally, and we can leverage the scale of cost to do the outdoor at the same time. There's a number of things in the proposal. But what's more important to me is that we've all been around long enough to see legacy projects where the capital is easy to raise and then the facility falls into disrepair. So in order to be able to maintain probably $1.5 million of annual budget for staff and for repairs and for ongoing costs, it would take an endowment of probably $15 to $20 million. But that money is available.
Councillor Webb.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I've been involved in a municipal committee that was formed because the Juan de Fuca Performing Arts Society has been looking for a long time for a site to potentially build a West Shore theater and arts facility that would have some of the same things that you talked about, meeting rooms and things. Is there ever any thought about combining with them? Because land seems to be the biggest issue, is trying to find a location for that group. And just you're mentioning that Colwood was talking about being kind of the place for things like this, that might be a thought.
Sure. Well, if you think that Judith Cullington has not spoken to us about it.
Think again,
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, I'm also a member of the West Shore Performing Arts Council.
Okay.
Pay my $5 annual membership. So yeah, whatever we can do to bring as many hands and hearts onto this as possible. Of course, the danger is that it becomes a Christmas tree of projects and that we never get anything. The other danger is that it scales back so small that it doesn't satisfy anybody.
Right. Thank you.
Just one question. Have you talked to West Shore Parks and Recreation?
When we made the proposal at that time, Council Member Dean Jansen was the representative for West Shore Parks and Rec. I believe he still is. So it's been messaged to them through that, but they're doing their own planning at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Do you feel that would be a good idea? Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
With that, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming here.
Thank you.
Explaining this to us. Right up. Okay, thank you. We'll turn now to our second presentation, Bert Harrison from the Museum Society.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The reason I'm coming to speak to you this evening is on behalf of the Metchosin Museum Society is the presentation that you'll be hearing later to do with a wheelchair ramp for the Schoolhouse Museum. And I'm just hoping to explain the reason why that is on the list. As some of you may realize, the board has learned in the course of seeking servicing for the existing ramp that we have there that was installed at the time that the school was reopened and recommissioned. And we since, when we were seeking servicing for the lift, that the lift that we have, in fact, is a residential lift, and it's being used in a commercial and public setting. And it was through seeking a second quotation through an alternate supply company, that they told us that this was against the Canadian Standards Safety Act, and that if they were to come to the site to do the service work, that they could possibly face penalty, and we could be liable for any accidents that should happen on the site. So we, as the council, decided that we would just use using the wheelchair lift, and we brought it to the attention of the District of Metchosin staff as well, that we discovered that we had the wrong application for the lift that was being used there. And this, it was the board at the time, purchased the lift because of a space restriction requirement, and thought this was the best solution to the application. It has proved not to be the case, and what we were pleased to find out that there was this other source of funds, because our society agreed that it's our financial responsibility to do something with the ramp as opposed to lift situation. So that's the reason that this ramp application is on your agenda this evening at fairly short notice. Now we have the other alternative would be to buy a much more expensive, not only initial cost, but a cost of service on an annual basis, commercial lift to take its place. Now, this is something that is definitely beyond the financial ability of the Metchosin Museum Society to pay for this within our budget. We'd like to think that this regrettable incident will be outweighed in the minds of the public of the society's many volunteer accomplishments that have happened over the last 50 years. The number of volunteers that have contributed their time, resources, and funds in a lot of cases, to bring the history of Metchosin, to the people of Metchosin into the future. Is there any other questions regarding that I could?
Thank you. Let's open it up to council. Do you have any specific questions regarding this? Go ahead, Greg.
Through the chair, thanks very much, Bert, for the presentation. Does that mean the lift will be decommissioned and removed?
Yes, the lift will be decommissioned. It has been decommissioned, and the lift will be removed, and we will try to recoup as much of the cost as we can, and use that towards the ramp, as well as some pavers around the handicap accessibility parking area.
Councillor Shukin.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Mr. Harrison, thanks very much for being here tonight and explaining what's the project is. In terms of the location of the ramp, do you know where it would go, and do you have the space to do it properly? Because a ramp, a key thing is going to be the, covering the distance to get to the height you want. But
yeah, we know approximately the requirement for the proper elevation of the ramp, and that's one of the reasons why we have to remove the lift before we would be able to start any exploratory work on it. But we hope to have it close to the side of the museum, and we hope to have it designed and finished in a manner that it sort of blends in with the setting, so that it looks like it's been there forever, and in terms of the trim and so forth. But it's not going to, it's going to be a bit of a tight squeeze. Because of this, we're going to have to alter some of the pavers and some of the landscaping that's been done that we're so proud of up at this point. We're going to have to make the change, though, to fit the requirement.
Okay.
Counselor Epp.
Thanks for coming to explaining it. That's really great. And I really feel really bad. It's a really unfortunate situation. It must have been really, really upsetting when you found out all about that. And I know you guys, there's just been so many thousands of hours of work put into that schoolhouse museum. It's really too bad you have to keep on going now with this. But anyway, thanks for coming to let us know.
Yes, we want to, to do this in a most pleasing manner, the outcome, and hopefully this will facilitate the accessibility for not only people with handicap disabilities, but it was brought to my attention yesterday that it will be helpful for mothers with strollers and so forth to get in as well. Something I've never thought about because I'm a little beyond that stage. So how you get your stroller up 4 steps sort of thing. So the ramp will be multi-purpose.
Counselor Shukin.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Mr. Harrison, you will be decommissioning the lift. Is that correct? You're going to do this regardless of whether the grant is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Timelines for that?
Pardon?
Your timelines for removing the lift, or like this year, or?
Well, right now.
Oh, okay.
Because technically we would not be able to open the museum as an accessible facility without access. And so we're trying to expedite the construction of it. But we've actually had a structural engineer there this morning having a look at it. But it's going to take time. There's various steps and so forth. And the museum will be opening up again in April. In any course, that would be the target to open up at that time. And we're hoping to have the ramp in and the grounds reconditioned and put back into as good a shape as possible.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for the explanation. That's very helpful.
Well, thanks for the opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay, thank you to all the presenters. We understand that you may have a life, so you don't have to stay, but you're most welcome to stay for the entire meeting. Okay, with that, I'll move to public participation. If you wish to speak at the microphone, you have 4 minutes. If you could tell us your name and your street, that would be great. That'll be a first. Okay, let's move on then. Now, Council, to the adoption of the minutes. So we're moving to page 15. We have the adoption of the minutes from the council meeting of January 6th.
Move it.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. Comments? Councillor Gray?
I just had one comment about the capital budget request for the bulk water station. I've heard a few people talking about the cost for that. And I just want to say that I'm pleased with the plan that we would proceed with it. I think it will be an important resource for the community, even at that cost. And of course, the CRD sharing in the expense. We've got many stressed wells in Metchosin already. And with new housing, including the Beckingham development underway, we want to be able to meet community needs.
Councillor Shukin?
Sorry, and just to add to Councillor Gray's comments, I want to pass on thanks to Councillor Donaldson, who was not here tonight. But yeah, she was working hard behind the scenes, especially with the the Juan de Fuca Water Board. Yeah, so big thanks to her.
Okay, that's great. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That's unanimous. So we have receipt of minutes on page 23. Councillor F.
I'll move receipt of the committee of the whole meeting of January 13th.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Comments? Not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And next we have the Special Finance Committee budget meeting of January 14th.
Move receipt of the Budget Committee meeting of January 14th.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Or do you have a comment? Nope. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, moving right along to my mayor's report. Very briefly, I attended the state funeral for John Horgan last month. It was a really incredible event, lots of tears, but a lot more laughter. There was some incredible speeches, and it was quite an event, 3 hours honoring a really extraordinary man. There was an announcement at the CRD table to purchase. The CRD would like to purchase the Kapoor Lumber Company lands. This is over 1,900 hectares of land located adjacent to the Souk Lake Reservoir catchment area and the Souk Lake watershed. Acquiring these lands has been a priority for the CRD for many, many years. Because it further protects the region's primary water source and aligns with our long-term vision for sustainable water management and environmental leadership and stewardship. So this will go out, the cost will be $33.3 million, which is absolutely significant. It is an opportunity that the CRD wants to move in because of they're looking long terms to providing that protection of the watershed. They're also looking to partner with First Nations, so they're opening that up for stewardship options as well. So that there will be an AAP, an alternate approval process for the boring of the $33 million. That's just to let you know. Councillor Gray, being on the Water Commission, did you have anything else you wanted to say about that?
Well, just that it's great news. I think there's only one sobering point, and that is that the Kapoor Logging Company will continue to log the property until September 2025. But that was unavoidable in terms of the purchase, and I think the acquisition of land is fundamentally a fabulous circumstance. So thank you.
Okay. The next is I'm a CRD appointee for the Greater Victoria Coalition to End Homelessness. They have a number of efforts in the fire. Their efforts in 2023, 2024 were twofold, ensuring that the final stages of the community plan was successfully completed and laying the groundwork for the next plan. There is problems with funding for this. They would like to put a lot of emphasis on prevention and understanding and addressing the root causes, including poverty, mental health challenges, and systemic inequities. So anyways, that's something new for me. They wanted a West Shore appointee and nobody else wanted it. So they asked me and I said, sure. So that is ongoing. And just recently, last week, Mayor Barb Desjardins and Councillor Andrea Boardman organized a healthcare forum for the Western Community local government leadership. And the goal of this forum was to just provide an a venue for understanding what is happening in terms of healthcare planning in the Western communities. Esquimalt, Souk, Colwood, Langford, Wanda Fuca, and Metchosin were all represented at the meeting, and they were all explaining what they're doing and what they'd like to see happen in their regions. For sure, there's many residents that are unattached to a healthcare provider, and they would all like to. They are all unanimous that we need more healthcare, allied healthcare professionals, be it doctors, nurse practitioners, or physician's assistants. Okay, and that's it. Go ahead, Councillor Gray.
Yeah, unfortunately, I missed the meeting as I was down with COVID. But I'm wondering, were there any actions agreed, or is it more the idea of a forum for discussion and there'll be a follow-up?
Yeah, right now it's more of a forum for discussion and follow-up. The next meeting will be in about 3 months.
Thank you.
Okay, we also have a Rise and Report. This is from the November 4th in-camera meeting. We have the appointment to the Capital West Accessibility Advisory Committee. Council has appointed Janine Finnerty as the chosen representative on the Capital West Advisory Committee. Ms. Finnerty is a resident of Metchosin and brings extensive knowledge in community health, lived experience, and supporting people with disabilities. Council believes that Ms. Finnerty will be a valuable member of this committee. We'd also like to thank those residents who expressed an interest in being appointed to the committee. With that, that ends my mayor's report and the Rise and Report. We'll move on to business arising. On page 37, Councillor Epp, we have the business arising from the January 13th Committee of the Whole. On page 37, everybody.
Your mic. Yes.
Yeah, I don't, we do have this, the goose update. So it was about that council send a resolution about this to the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities. So I don't know if anyone wants to make a motion about that or.
Yeah, thank you, Marilyn. I would move that council send a resolution to present at the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities, their convention, to support a goose call and seek support from the Peninsula and Area Agricultural Committee municipalities for the resolution. So moved.
Moved by Councillor, Shukin, second by, I'll second that motion. Yep. Discussion. Councillor Gray.
So clearly there's a big problem for our farmers with the geese, and also a big problem in the environment, particularly the estuaries where the geese have been a major problem. And I think we do need effective solutions. And from the note that we had, it sounds like we're not doing very well. I did see the article in the Muse, though, written by Robin, the chair of the Agriculture Committee. And so I went to the CRD website, and there I learned that Canada geese are a federally protected species, that there's a Canada Goose Management Services Establishment bylaw, the CRD, passed in 2023, that there's a collaborative regional strategy underway with First Nations, landowners, the Peninsula Agricultural Area Commission, other government agencies, and stewardship groups, that hunting is permitted in some municipalities with federal permits, and that the CRD opposes a cull. In other words, I think it's the board policy there. And none of that information was in the background. So I remember Councillor Epp, I think, saying we need a bit more information here. So I turned to the AVIC resolution documents that we've all received. And what they say is that, to put a resolution forward, we need to have a specific and doable action for the province. So what could the province do? And so I looked at the resolution, and I don't think it works very well because it's actually, this issue is largely under federal jurisdiction. So I just wasn't sure. The AVIC also says, make sure you've got accurate references to pertinent legislation, which I guess would be federal in this case and also provincial, I suppose. AVIC recommends local staff work on it to assist in writing resolutions because of the question of being sure we've got a good one and worthwhile. And I'm just wondering about how we might sort of put things together here, given the regional approach that's a bit different than what we're suggesting. And I take it the note says, well, we'll talk to other people about it. But I'm wondering if we should charge the advisory committee or staff to get in with the CRD and just find out what's going on and what's the plans and how would this resolution fit. I'm with our farmers on this, by the way. I think there's considerable urgency. And I'm curious, or I'm sort of wondering, is AVIC the avenue to pursue here, or is it more writing the province around their jurisdiction, writing the federal government about their jurisdiction and what do they say, working with the CRD?
Yeah, good points, Councillor Ebb.
Yeah, those are good points. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, is I don't support this because I don't feel we do have enough information on it. So I would not be supporting this motion.
Councillor Shukin.
I will support this motion as perhaps imperfect as the actual resolution that would go to AVICC is. And I was myself wondering about whether geese might be considered migratory birds and thus have a federal connection. It's interesting though, after the meeting, someone mentioned to me that the geese on Vancouver Island, if they're those pure geese that were brought here, are actually not migratory. They were an introduced species. So now where that fits within the, the body of fact that we have to rely on, I'm not totally sure. I would support this, if only to get the ball kicked. I think that this is a complicated way ahead, but reading the backgrounder, reading Ms. Tunnicliffe's article, it looks like there has been a lot that has been done and it isn't working. So, okay, thank you.
Okay. Do you have another comment, Councillor Gray?
Yeah, I mean, I learned about what had been done largely from the CRD website. And I guess I'm just concerned. I think we can put forward a motion, but whether or not AVIC will accept it, to go in, I guess will be the question. So it would require some staff work, I think, I'm not sure the motion that came from the committee would work, but perhaps a different motion proposing a call would work. But that, I think, would mean some staff work getting things together. We were in a bit of a time pressure, of course, for AVIC. And I'm just wondering if the same effort might go into other correspondence. In other words, carrying the lobbying effort. I want to move forward. It's just AVIC, and then there's a convention and all those other things going on. Whereas perhaps go right for the heart of it, do a little bit of research with the CRD, what's going on, what is the regional approach, and then go to the provincial veterinarian, it says, the provincial veterinarian and the federal government. The Canada Wildlife Service, apparently those who would make the decisions. I'm eager that we get something done. I just don't want to spin our wheels.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, I don't have like a solid information either, so I'm kind of stuck in that netherworld here about saying, gosh, do we want to have the staff spend time on this or getting some other correspondence going that would maybe launch us a little bit faster?
Okay, well, I think this is a good start. I think a multi-pronged approach, writing both to the province and to the feds would be a great idea. But we certainly have to do something. It's not just one farmer, it's many farmers in the region that are really suffering and losing tens of thousands of dollars. So with that, is there any other comments? Go ahead, Councillor Shukin.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Just finally, if there is more work to do on this, I don't discount at all the points that Councillor Gray is making, but if there's more work to do on this, I would recommend that we turn it back to the Agricultural Advisory Committee and not spare staff any detailed work on this right now. So
Okay.
I will be voting in support of it.
Okay. So with that, I'll call the question. Those in favor? And those opposed? Councillor Epp opposed. That motion carries. Thank you. Continue on, Councillor Epp.
Okay, we'll move on to fill removal or replacement on ALR land. I can move this one, move that council direct staff to incorporate Agricultural Land Commission regulations, that's ALC policy L-02, for soil removal or placement for properties within the agricultural land reserve into the Metchosin soil removal and deposit bylaw number 402, and that the district make these ALR rules readily available and easy to access for farm owners within the ALR.
Okay, this moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Comment? Councillor Shukin.
Thanks. And with this motion, I take it that staff, when they bring forward the soil removal and deposit bylaw, will build in the ALR components. We know that the deposit and removal bylaw was coming to us anyways, So we'll get a chance to see all of this incorporated in the body. So, yeah. That's, okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gray.
Just a question about the second part. The district will make the ALR rules readily available and easy to access for farm owners within the ALR. How would we do that?
Well, probably by information at this table, at the Agricultural Advisory Select Committee, and then on the website. Councillor Epp, did you have any more questions?
No.
No? Councillor Shukin?
Councillor Donaldson had a package of information regarding ALR rules around dumping. So I think that's part of the information that would be made available. So,
And there were 3 of you that attended this soil fill removal workshop. And they talked about the ALR or the ALC's guidelines, I imagine, at that workshop. Yes. Okay. Sounds like it's a good idea. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That's unanimous.
Mayor Little,
Yeah.
can I just clarify the previous action item? I just didn't want to lose anything about the goose resolution to AVIC. Could we just record that we would refer it back to the Ag Committee to do it? That staff would review it for accuracy, but that we include some information about the CRD, what they're doing, so that it's clear when it goes to AVIC that there's other activities going on, and then reference to the legislation.
Okay, so let's go over that
Yeah.
again. The motion would be to,
Oh, not so much a motion, just the action of how we get this
Okay.
done. We've approved the motion, happy with that,
Yeah.
voted in favor. Just that I want to follow up on Councillor Shukin's idea that we not tax staff too heavily. Could go back to the advisory committee, just to draft it up so it's following the AVIC guidelines, and the staff review it for accuracy, particularly on the legislative, with the legislative issues, and then make sure we include information about what's going on in the region and the CRD.
that's okay with everybody? Okay, thank you.
And do we want to seek their advice about writing the federal government and the province as a separate activity? I think that would be a good idea to check if they think that's, after they prepare the motion, just to see if that's advisable. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is an update to the Parks and Trails Master Plan. So, sure.
Thank you very much. The motion is that council authorize the Parks and Trails Advisory Select Committee to proceed with updating the district's Parks and Trails Master Plan based on the scope of work and timeline presented on January 13th, 2025.
This is moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. Anything you want to add? Councillor Gray?
I just wanted to clarify, Councillor Epp and others are working away on the Active Transportation Network plan. And then I think that's going to come to us for approval. And once we may change it or adjust it, but once we've approved that, then am I correct that that plan then would stand, and then the work of the Parks and Trails would be supplementary to that, or in addition, or deal with the other parts? Or are we charging PTAS to review the Active Transportation Plan and adjust it and change it through another process? I just wanted to do double duty on this.
Oh, well, I think this would be a separate thing. The Parks and Trails Committee is mostly concerned with, inland trails and connector trails. Well, the Active Transportation Plan comes in there with the connector trails, obviously, but the Active Transportation Plan deals with basically transportation that's would be along the roads and our main routes, and how they can, they're cycling, walking, riding, rolling along our major routes, not onto interior trails and so on. So I think, and we will be having a public information session likely next month about the Active Transportation Plan. So I think that they'll work together on it, but I think they still are quite two separate things.
Councillor Shukin?
Yeah, and just to echo what Councillor Epp is saying, they are two separate things. And if I'm not wrong, I think one of the key aspects of the active transportation plan or realm is pedestrian and road safety, if you will.
Right.
Yeah. So that's not, that maybe comes into a little bit of play with Parks and Trails Master Plan, but it's about, you know, the element of natural parks could be invasive species removal. We might look at things like land acquisition and land use and whatnot. So part of the goal is to actually do a brief plans on each of the parks and key trails we have in terms of management aspects. So it's very different.
And don't forget the Parks and Trails Master Plan will come back to this table for ratification. So anything that is identified in the active transportation plan that is omitted in the Parks and Trails Master Plan, we can add in. Councillor Rapp?
Yeah, the active transportation plan is basically any way to get people out of their cars and using other modes of transportation.
Councillor Gray?
I suppose my confusion become with the PTASC is to have a big involvement in roadside trails, and the active transportation plan may end up talking about roadside trails. And I just wanted to be sure, as I say, we didn't do double duty or expend staff time or volunteer time on things that are already decided at the table through one or the other process. Duke Road East comes to trail, road safety, and roadside trail. So that would fall under the active transportation plan more than PTASC from the explanation we were just having.
Okay. Okay, sufficient conversation about this. I'll call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. And the last one.
Last one is, and I can move that council approve the District of Metchosin 2025 council priorities.
This is moved by Councillor Epp, second by Councillor Schuken. Discussion? Councillor Epp.
I just wanted to thank Councillor Schuken for all the work put into getting these priorities all organized for us.
Likewise.
Okay, Councillor Schuken.
It was a ton of fun. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That's unanimous as well. Okay, now we've got the Special Finance Committee budget meeting recommendations from January 14th. Would somebody like to move that in Councillor Donaldson's absence? Go ahead, Councillor Epp.
I move that council direct staff to issue a request for proposals for the Flesh Road Hall Bridge, and that the RFP include the following three options: deactivation of the bridge removal, 2, design remediation of an equestrian and pedestrian bridge, and 3, design remediation for vehicular travel. And further, that the existing FortisBC and CRD water infrastructure on the bridge be considered as part of the RFP.
This is moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Schuken. Further comment, Councillor Epp?
Only that I don't know if we need to include cycling in number 2, like equestrian, pedestrian, and cycling or rolling. Cycling and rolling, I guess, or just rolling.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Councillor Gray?
So I'm not in favor of the motion. At the last meeting, we were troubled over the costing. The numbers weren't adding up, and I think Councillor Epp, you raised that up first in the group. But when I sort of had some time, I was in my sick bed, I guess, looking over some of the details in the old reports here. And I did get some input as well. I expect we did spend some money for Herald Engineering to do the last letter they sent us. We've paid them before for other work they've done. And I was contacted by a resident who, and I was convinced by their comment that if we issue an RFP for all three, if we issue an RFP, is that better?
Yeah.
Back here?
Yeah, that's better. Hardly understand.
My first time or second time using the microphone. Sorry, is that, can you hear that okay?
That's better, yeah.
Sorry. Sure. Thank you. I guess I was convinced if we go for all three options for the Flesh Road Bridge, I think that risks the district having some unnecessary increase in costs. By duplicating the payment for the assessments that Herald Engineering has done, but also through, we might end up accepting a lower bid and then getting exposed to extra change orders, because people are trying to figure out what to do, but asking them to give us prices on 3 different jobs that differ by orders of magnitude. So it's hard for people to make money in the circumstance. So I think we would be better to select a single preferred option and then issue the RFP. And we did have some costing questions, and I'll just mention what those were. The notes at the last meeting erroneously equated the cost estimates for bridge remediation for vehicles and pedestrian traffic at $141,000 and change. But in past estimates, those costs between traffic, vehicles and pedestrians differed by $166,000. So we know the $141,000 is not a correct number. Between 2022 and 2024, Herald Engineering estimated cost of the bridge remediation for bicycle and pedestrian use. It increased more than 2-fold. So in 2022, it was $44,000. 2024 is $105,000. I wonder why. I wonder if there's a different scope that they were looking at in the 2 different things. Where I'm going with this, I'm going to explain the calculation problems, and I think probably we can take another approach just to get that clear, rather than going to an RFP. The most important costing question was who's responsible for the costs associated with moving or rerouting water and gas, the gas line and the water line, and how much will these cost? Our most recent briefing on that in the budget meeting was that CRD water could be decommissioned. Good, probably at no cost to the district, I guess. That's not consistent with the advice we received previously, so I wonder what changed there. That's only about a $20,000 cost, and it was supposed to fall to us. The larger costs relate to the gas line. The 2022 cost figures were provided that were provided to us for the gas line range from $20,000 for vehicle remediation to $300,000 for bridge deactivation, and those are subject to further study. And I guess I'm wondering, I don't think we ever got this answered, does either the CRD or Fortis have an operating agreement or a license of occupation with the district for the utility lines attached to the bridge? If they do have one, what do those agreements say? And if they don't have an occupation agreement, then maybe we aren't responsible for those costs. Now, I realize that's both an engineering question and possibly a legal question. And then finally, the notes on page 31 of the December 5th budget said that if the district turned the bridge into a local service road, then a local resident would be willing to help with the cost to the district. And I wonder, is that offer still on the table? Much of these, so I'm just looking at the notes and comparing notes one to the other and back and forth. And I do agree that there's a risk going forward for the 3, without us deciding beforehand. And I'm just wondering if we couldn't do a simpler and more fiscally prudent approach, like we've done before, and have our municipal engineer dig into this a little further. Review the information, make those comparisons. We have a new engineer compared to us here before. Do a final check on the utility. Is there a license agreement or not? If there's not, do we have to pay anything? And then finalize the information, and then we can make a decision on which one we want to go with. That's a lot of things to say there, but I think there's a way to go here that would be a little bit better for us in terms of figuring out what's going on just by using our municipal engineer rather than other staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shukin.
I wonder if I could ask Mr. Payette a question about one of the elements that Councillor Gray has raised. And that question would be whether and what the value would be in having our engineer now look at all the information that has been collected, and where that might go in terms of framing up and solidifying options, and then even setting some parameters in terms of cost. I'll ask if we could ask Mr. Payette that. But the one thing that I'm leery of that Councillor Gray mentioned is making a decision without absent cost. And if that, okay, if I misunderstood then.
Yeah, my point is that as Mr. Hurley did before, he was able to put together these, kind of the exercise that I've done, only with the expertise of an engineer, and say, gee, I've looked at all those things, and now I'm coming back and saying, look, here are the three options. We're pretty sure about these costs. This would be the differences between them. Right now, the costs are so, as we were saying at the last meeting, that's where we're missing clarity. That's why we do the RFP, to get the costs. And I think we'd be better doing that with our own engineer rather than setting an RFP and all that business. Due to the risks of cost escalation simply by taking that action rather than using our resources we have at hand.
Councillor Epting, Councillor Shukin.
Well, I think this is really the only way to approach it. We've been discussing this bridge since the last term, and we've also had all the reports we've had have been from engineers, and there's been an incredible disparity in the costs of these various things. And to me, to actually put out an RFP and get a bridge contractor, someone who actually builds bridges or repairs bridges, to give us a price on the options, and I think is the only way we can actually make a decent decision on what to do. I think trying to make a decision before we have real firm prices is why we're still discussing this, because we haven't been able to get that, and we haven't been able to decide on what we want to do with it. So this way, we can have concrete prices, and then we can make a really informed decision on what would be the best option for Metchosin.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
I just want to confess that the motion that we're looking at came out of a phone conversation in the afternoon before the last meeting, because I wasn't certain of the numbers and trying to figure out what to do. So now that I've had a chance to go through all the numbers more carefully, I think another approach makes sense. But
Yeah, so we seem to be caught in a bit of a loop. We don't have enough information to make a decision on which option. And so that's why we came to the resolution of having an RFP, so that we could get specific prices within the request for proposal for each item. And as far as the utility provider, it is my understanding that at incorporation, the District of Metchosin was given us a lump sum of money for major infrastructure on all of the infrastructure that was going to be transferred from the regional district to the District of Metchosin's responsibilities. I understand that there was also an obligation at that point that the district would accommodate utility providers such as CRD and Fortis. When we talked about this almost 2 years ago, the interim CAO at the time did reach out to both CRD and to Fortis to see if they would like to partner, or what their responsibilities are. And they said, we have no responsibility. We're not interested in putting 1 cent towards the Hull Bridge. So at this point, maybe we could also hear from CAO Payette regarding the idea of asking our engineers to do this rather than doing an RFP process. My mind is the engineer, I don't know if he's equipped to give the actual pricing like we would get within an RFP, but I'd be interested to hear what you say.
Okay, thanks through the chair. So the first point would be, and this is an important decision for council, so we all understand they want to make the best decision because there's money involved. At this point, we're already into the fiscal year and construction year, so my point is that if we go to our in-house engineering consultant for more information, we likely will miss another year of construction. So we'll be into another year for one. So currently the motion is to get a quote or get our best quote on 3 options. And to do that, we would be engaging Herald, who are the bridge structural engineers, to do the specifications for the RFP, which I've asked them to do already or consider it. And so they can get a better set of specifications done and then do the RFP process so that the cost, and then we tender it out for RFP process, and we could get a more specific cost on the 3 options. So we can do all this year. It'll take time. So likely we'll go through the process, deliberate with council, and at that point, we start getting into the construction season, so we would be rushing to get things done this year. And then just on comments about the water line and the gas line, and the information that's been brought forward to council over the past few years, there's a lot of information that's been brought forward to council, and there's a lot of detail, and it's difficult to decipher through it all. But basically, my move forward comment is that we have a quote that was stamped by Herald this past year on what they think is the best, what they think would be the cost of repairing the bridge. And so I'm going to go with that quote as a stamped engineering quote. And I can't really speak to the past, but that's why we get stamped engineering quotes, is that's their best quote at the moment. And then on the gas line and the water line, after reading through all the information, the water line could possibly be shut down, but having worked with water distribution systems in my career, it's really nice to have loop systems in your distribution system for redundancy. And really we don't, the residents typically would prefer not to have one source of water, but for looping systems. So yes, it can be decommissioned, but it is a backup safety for water. The gas line, I believe there is some form of an agreement with the district when the development went in way back in the day, that it was our commitment for that service. And so that gas line, the way I understand it, would have to be tunneled under the creek. And we would likely lose a battle with the gas company on the costs of that gas line. So that all in consideration, can we run the gas line without the bridge? I believe there's lots of indication that you can put a gas line across the river without a bridge, but it has different kind of conduit. It would cost money. Currently, it's affixed to the bridge. There's no issue with that abutment to the bridge, so it's secure. So, we wouldn't have to touch the gas line currently. All of that taken into consideration, I believe the best course of action would be to get as close to a quote as we can possibly get on the costs of the 3 options, get it to council as quickly as possible. And I've already made calls to get that done, so we can hopefully get that done in the next few weeks. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions and comments? Councillor Gray.
Yeah, of course, I think we all understand there is no rush to do the work here in terms of this year, next year, whenever. I think for me, the issue is fiscal prudence rather than timing. The reason for the work to be done relates to the abutment being washed away at some point, rather than that it, I think we understand it's okay at the moment. Perhaps not, though. Maybe with the reference we've had before about liability, we do have to do something around putting some railing up for pedestrians. if there's a form of agreement on the gas line, maybe we could see that. Previously, we had, the letter we received from our own engineer was a phone call was made to ask if they'd be interested in picking up with no reference to previous agreements. Likewise, if there are agreements about taking over our utilities at the incorporation, maybe those documents would inform us as well. These aren't small numbers, like $300,000. So looking at a few documents and getting it straight might be worthwhile. I know we've been at this for a while. We've discussed it at different times. I just had the opportunity to go through all the documents and I could see for myself that it kind of makes sense. There's just a bit missing here that would help us in moving forward.
Okay. So on the main question, that this be issued as an RFP for the 3 different options, I'm going to call that question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Gray opposed. That motion carries. Okay, thank you. So reports for action. We have on page 41 rather, an update on the finance emergency expenditures. This is an old document from 2001, and it is to be amended. There's not a lot of changes, two changes here. So the recommendation is that we accept these changes. Could I get a councillor to prepare that motion?
I'll move that.
Moved by Councillor Epp.
I had a question or two or a thought. I wonder if I could just get those out before
Sure.
we entertain a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
So the only, I'm thinking that if this is needed, we are in a dire emergency situation. And so what it says here, and I would be curious to hear Mr. Payette's comments as well, but we have the mayor and at least 2 other councillors. So, but my question is, what happens if the mayor isn't present or can't be present? So I'm wondering if it is possible to just simply say, and a quorum of council. So which could be, and the beauty of that in a way is you have the mayor still listed as a policy head, but if you're in a dire situation and you need to expend funds, you could simply do a quorum of council. But as it reads right now, you do need the mayor to execute this. Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
What did you say, Councillor Epp?
Sorry, I just said our acting mayor.
Yeah, so mayor or acting mayor
Yeah.
and 2
Okay.
councillors. Do you think we need 2 councillors? 1 councillor wouldn't be enough?
Well, I think what it's saying here is you would do this based on a quorum of council, so mayor and 2 councillors. So, I'm sorry, yeah. So, again, I'm just wondering if the edit is simple, that you strike mayor and at least 2 other councillors and just say with the approval of a quorum of council.
I was wondering if our corporate officer, deputy corporate officer wanted to weigh in here on the wording. Ms. Hanson, did you want to weigh in on point number 5?
I would like to defer to our fire chief because I believe the mayor is the only one that can declare a state of an emergency.
Right.
So I would prefer to, we could put mayor or designate or their designate, but I would actually prefer to confirm with the fire chief.
Okay, so how about if we just bring this back, if that would be okay with council?
Yeah.
We'll confer with the fire chief and then we'll bring it back to the next meeting. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, and maybe the fire chief could let us know too. It's not clear to me, I get the point that the mayor declares the emergency, or the deputy mayor in the mayor's absence, I suppose, but I'm not clear on the role of elected officials in managing the emergency. So here we've got the chief administrative officer, the chief financial officer, the fire chief, all there. Who would advise the mayor or the elected official to make this decision?
I think it
So
would,
maybe the fire chief
I think
could
it would be a
just explain that.
combination of the fire chief and the CAO, but mainly the fire chief. But
Yeah,
it would be the only, if the fire chief can't declare a state of emergency, it has to be the mayor.
right. So once the emergency has been declared, then this is about the spending.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wondered what the role of the elected official is in the management. It just comes up vis-a-vis the briefings that we've been given. So that if the fire chief could answer that too at the same time. Thanks.
Councillor Epp.
It's kind of recall the exact here, but there's a whole emergency operations through locally and through the province. Like there's a whole protocol to be followed in the case of an emergency. And basically it's the emergency operations coordinator, or whoever is heading that looks after everything, the media and, you know, what councillors are supposed to be doing, which is not much in that case, I think. But yeah, there is a real, definitely a protocol to follow in the case of when a state of emergency is declared.
Yeah, and that's my point, is our role isn't much. And so that's why I'm curious.
Okay, let's bring this back, including the role of councillors and the mayor if there is a state of emergency declared. Okay, great, thanks, good discussion. On page 43, we have a staff report, a local community accessibility grant. This is from Mr. Creek, our Chief Financial Officer, regarding seeking council approval for the local community accessibility grant to Spark BC in the amount of $25,000 to be used for resurfacing of the parking lot at the community house and an accessibility ramp at the Metchosin School Museum. Mr. Creek, would you speak to that? You can speak at your microphone there if you like.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Through the chair, so staff is requesting Council's authorization to apply for a local community accessibility grant through Spark BC. That funding would then be used to resurface the parking lot at the community house, and then also help out with the ramp that was mentioned earlier at the Metchosin School Museum. And then we'd also request that Council ask for a letter of support from Capital West Accessibility Advisory Committee for the projects identified. We're expecting it to come in at $25,000. We're getting some donations for materials that would help with the community house parking project, which should help cover some of the costs. If there's any leftover funds between the two, come back to council, see what other accessibility projects would be available to be used for. That would meet the criteria from the Spark BC grant.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gray,
I'm ready to move the motion.
go ahead.
The council approves staff to apply for the Spark BC grant and request a letter of support from the CWAAC.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Shukin.
Just a quick question through you to Mr. Creek. It doesn't look like this is a matching grant. It looks like this is you get the money and you spend the money if you get it.
Correct. We don't have to spend anything.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, with that, I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. And next we have reports for information, starting with the District Metchosin Building Inspection Department report. And just to note, we have the 2024 figures and the 2023 figures on the far right. There's quite a variance, so there were less permits issued in 2024 compared to previous years. We hope that that increases. As well, we have a breakdown in the permits that were issued in the previous year and the year 2024. With that, I'll take a motion to receive.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, second by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have the District of Metchosin Public Communication Report Statistics. So these are the reports that come in from the public to the District of Metchosin. You can see that roads and land use continue to occupy time with people, either complaints usually, to the District of Metchosin. Anybody else have any comments regarding this? If not, I'll take a motion to receive. Moved by
Proceed.
Councillor Shukin, second by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have on page 55, a letter from Todd Preston. He's wanting to know again, what are our priorities? These are to be set by March 3rd. He wants to convene, as you've heard, a town hall meeting with all of the partners of the West Shore. So that's View Royal, Highlands, Langford, Colwood, and ourselves. At that town hall will be March 18th, 2025. And the invites haven't been sent, but they will be sent. So let's have a discussion regarding priorities. So we did have our public communications report. Roads is up high in the public communications report. Certainly we're paying a lot for our policing. Personally, I like to see them in our community. They're most welcome. And we do know from the statistics that Superintendent Todd Preston gave us that we still have a problem, not just in Metchosin, but throughout the region with impaired driving. And so monitoring of road speeds and checkpoints, I think, are occasionally very worthwhile. Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Anybody else? Councillor Epp, you often have your pulse on this issue.
Well, it's usually on speeding, and as you mentioned, it would be, it makes a huge difference to have them in the community, whether they're just, as he's said, lots of times they just come and park on the side of the road and then they do their paperwork while they're there, but they don't really stop speeders. I mean, I guess unless they saw somebody really flying by, but it's just the presence on the roads is really makes a difference. People, as soon as they see that car, they're going to slow down. And also a priority, I think, is to, if whatever they can do to really stay on top of the drug problem and some of the violence that we've had here. And we've had several overdoses. We've had a big drug bust. Fortunately, most of them have happened right in my neighborhood. But anyway, it would be really good to stay on top of that. We've had the issue of the shooting on Kangaroo Road and that area on the corner of Kangaroo and Souk, which is ongoing. But it's not just there. It seems to be all over Metchosin, and I know they are doing their best to keep track of it. But it'd be nice to also hear a little bit about it, to kind of be informed about what's going on with that part of it, and maybe any other kind of more hidden issues that we're having in here with the increased crime. What they're going to do about the effect of the huge explosion in population at Royal Bay, which is definitely going to be affecting Metchosin. I don't know if if there's anything they can do to kind of preempt some of the issues that are just going to grow here or not. But
Yeah, I echo your concerns concerning the drug problem. The traffic accident that happened, I think it was December 30th on Kangaroo Road, where the first responders from Metchosin arrived, and it was clear that the fellow had been shot at. He went into surgery and lost an eye and most of his guts. So he will be affected for long term. Fortunately for us, if there's a silver lining, we do have VIMQ. So this is, Superintendent Todd Preston said this is a VIMQ file, Vancouver Island Major Crimes Unit file now. So had we not had that VIMQ coverage through the West Shore RCMP, we'd be looking at all those costs, which is ongoing. And he said they don't have any leads. They were talking to a lot of people, but it was going to be ongoing, he said, probably for years. So I echo your concerns about drugs in Metchosin. as well. I'd also like to note, in terms of the road safety, I did appreciate when they had their car outside of Hans Helgeson School, especially when we first initiated the crosswalk and the lighting. I'd like them to have a recurrent presence there, not continually, but occasionally at the school. I think that is very helpful. Councillor Shukin.
Thanks. I will just echo again what both of you have said in terms about drug crime and likely organized crime. The two seem to go hand in hand. So that is a priority as well. I don't want to stretch things too much, but we had a correspondence earlier today about concerns with fires on the beach, which might possibly lead to larger fires or what would you call it, disruptions and concern. So if there's any way that maybe the fire department, the police, or even CRD bylaw might see fit to work together.
Okay.
Again, if that's at all possible. The concern comes in some ways as we head into the drier season, and the fact that it hasn't rained for so long, and I don't see any rain in the forecast for the next little while, it just begins to kind of get this eerie feeling about us being put at risk again. So, yeah. Right.
Okay. Okay, so we'll capture all of those comments and put them in a letter to Superintendent Todd Preston and look forward to the workshop. Go ahead.
And I gather the fraud issues have come up again with people being approached about asphalt on their laneways. And we remember, was it a year ago, the police were involved in addressing that issue. And there may be more than that. I remember when Todd Preston was here, who was referring to the issues online fraud and that sort of thing that catches particularly vulnerable seniors, or maybe not so vulnerable seniors, regular people. Another issue we've heard about.
And Councillor Rapp.
Just one other thing is that, they do have the mental health team now of the RCMP and the nurses. So I just would like to really make sure that is a priority in Metchosin, is to that team continues, because they have had a lot of mental health calls in Metchosin, and so that's it'd be a priority that continues in our community as well as everywhere else.
Yeah, good point. Okay, I don't think we need an motion, but we'll capture all those points and relay them to Superintendent Todd Preston. Moving on to correspondence for information, we have a lovely letter from Peter and Deirdre Chettleburg regarding their appreciation of the old school building and the multi-use facility. They've listed here a number of events that they've attended, including flu and COVID shots, jiu-jitsu classes and art classes. So anyways, it was nice to receive that, and kudos go to municipal staff and the fire chief for making this a reality and for continued management of the school. Okay. Oh, excuse me. That's correspondence for information. And next we have a bylaw. This is the Advisory Select Committee Amendment Bylaw number 706. This is a memo from CAO Payette. The recommendation is that council adopt the Advisory Select Committee Amendment Bylaw. You can see that it has been amended to include the District of Metchosin Respectful Workplace policy. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I move that council adopt bylaw number 706.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. I just want to know, CAO Payette, did you want to add anything at this point?
I don't, but potentially the corporate officer does.
Deputy Corporate Officer Hansen, did you want to add anything to this?
Through the chair, not really, just that the bylaw is up for adoption, and once adopted, we'll consolidate it into bylaw 493 and bring forward the consolidated version of the bylaw to the advisory committees for review.
Okay, that's great. So we have a motion on the table. Anybody else wish to speak to it? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That's unanimous. And with that, we have time for a question period, up to 20 minutes. Does anybody have any questions for council? If so, state your name and your street. Thank you.
Good evening, Brent Donaldson, Chalister Court. I'm a member of the Advisory Committee for Agriculture in Metchosin. I'm going to try and form this in the way of a question. I wonder if council could consider the impacts of the geese as they relate to the avian flu influenza. Certainly there is a farmer in Saanich. They lost all their pullets to the avian flu. So it's not just field crops, but one could consider the impacts that they've also had on the lower mainland in Abbotsford and the like. So it's not just grains and hay, which is very important certainly, but for food production, not to mention school grounds, parks, you know, the mess they make, and contact with humans and all that goes along with it. So just something to consider. It's more than just, you know, local stuff around here too. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good point. To tell you the truth, I hadn't taken that into consideration, but it's important. We do have some chicken farmers here in Metchosin. Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Shukin.
I have a question for Mr. Payette.
Yeah,
anyone
go
else.
ahead.
Mr. Payette, is it true that the transit bench on Duke Road East has been set and established? I think it is. Okay,
It's
yes.
true.
Anyways, I wanted to just pass my thanks on to staff, and they've been working diligently to get the bench up. It's been about a year, and the delays, I don't think have been with staff. It's been with a number of other things. So it's, yeah, and we did have a compliment, I think, as everyone saw from the family members. So yeah,
Okay.
Thanks very much for getting that done.
Okay, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Gray, second by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Most carried. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
I have more questions.